This video is brought to you by Straight Goods News, Canada's alternative online news source. Visit straightgoods.ca.
Today we had an announcement in Washington, as everyone knows, the Prime Minister and Barack Obama, and we have more questions today than we actually have answers. I live on the border representing Windsor West. We have 40% of Canada's daily trade actually goes along 2 kilometers of the Detroit River. And there's a lot of serious implications of a new border arrangement. And what I saw today was privacy issues. A lot of Canadians will be wondering, if I'm going to take my son or my daughter or my family to Disney World, what type of biometric information I'm going to have to disclose or give up to the United States, and how that's going to be used, where it's going to be processed, and what the fate of it will be after a number of different years. There's issues of cost on this relationship. $1 billion is a lot of money, and where the money is going to come from and how it's going to be used. We see in the Windsor-Detroit corridor, for example, we still don't have that key piece of infrastructure finished by this government. It's still lagging in the Michigan legislature right now, so our #1 border crossing is still is not completed. So you saw a lot of things today, but I would just emphasize that we've seen this before. In 2001, John Manley signed with Ridge an agreement, a 30-point plan. This seems to be building upon that, but we didn't get all the things we were supposed to get from that plan, and it appears that we're giving more away.
Is there anything with businesses that you see that businesses might find as positive news to help them get across the border faster, to get their goods down to the United States faster?
We're going to have to really examine it. On the surface, it appears that there could be some improvements here, but what we've seen in the past is programs like Nexus get bogged down in problems because what's happening on the ground isn't happening in terms of what the agreements have been noted. So we'll have often Nexus people being pulled over and gone through after they've actually had their car or their certification done. They also have problems with some of the truck drivers as well too. So I suggested to the manufacturing industries that there is a demand measurables. There needs to be measurables in this so that we go through a process and we can show demonstrably that the free flow of goods and services is actually happening. And I find it interesting because they're talking about low-risk trade. Well, that was supposed to be taken care of through the Manley-Ridge Agreement to begin with. So we didn't really win anything out of that. So we'll see what's going to happen, but there needs to be measurables, and the government needs to be account to that.
Well, do you see anything in this agreement then that would make it easier for the average person to get across? I mean, I'm just thinking the long lineups going to the tunnel.
Yeah.
Anything faster there?
It could make it worse, because look, what's happening in this agreement is that we're going to separate the lower and the high risk. So the high risk people, if they're determined to be high risk because they're not on that other list, might be having to get further scrutiny, and so they might get caught in this whole thing, and you might actually have people getting longer lines to get over in the United States. It's just a potential. Anything's a potential with this agreement because we've seen in the past when they've used other techniques that haven't really worked, and we haven't followed through. So I'm really worried that families, again, if you're turning over biometric information, that could be an iris scan, it could be a fingerprint. That's going to take time, and we saw with the WHTI came in the passports. It takes time for the border officer to swipe your card and to go through it, and it's going to take time for these biometrics. And once again, the privacy issues are huge in this because people are really concerned about where their information can end up, and you're talking about family members as well too. And I just point out too, there's going to be other situations like on the border in Canada and the United States. Say for example, if you're collecting unemployment insurance and you go over to the United States for one day to, say for example, for your son or your daughter's hockey tournament, well, the United States will know that, and that will make you ineligible for EI. So we deal with cases in my office all the time where people have been cut off for EI and causing more processing and more wait times because of, they say, for example, we've been sent over to the hospital to the United States. They've been sent over there by not their choice, and then they get their EI cut off. So the Americans will have that information of who's been in and out of the country, and that is going to punish the Canadian for no fault of their own.
So then what's the answer to get goods, get people flowing across the border faster? Well,
the #1 thing right now is to get the the Windsor-Detroit crossing completed. I mean, that's just kind of odd that we still are struggling with that, and we're still talking about more lanes and more efficiency. But then to get the measurables there, is the measurables. We need to focus on the processing times. What we've been focusing on is putting Predator planes on the border. Black Hawk helicopters have been added in the Detroit region. We've added the gunboats that had the Browning machine gun that fires 1,200 bullets a minute, and we focus on the ship rider as all the security. The debate has been about how unsecure the northern border is and the threat that is coming from Canada. The debate should have been about how we want to improve our trade, free flow of goods and services, and to make sure that there actually is going to be measurables to reduce those times.